The suggested diagnosis in the documentary was Digital Munchausen by Proxy. I understand how they landed there, but I think that diagnosis is incomplete. I think it is a miss. So I watched the most disturbing documentary this weekend. It's called Unknown Number on Netflix. It starts off with this 13-year-old girl who is being harassed and abused and manipulated by somebody anonymously via text message. This person is writing these super hypersexual, super aggressive, super abusive texts to her and to her boyfriend. And the kids turn to their parents, they turn to the community, they go, I don't know who this person is. Is it somebody else in our group? And then the parents, the police, the school administrators get involved, and they're trying to figure out who is it that is sending all of these horrible text messages. Eventually, the 13-year-old girl, Lauren Licari, and her boyfriend, Caleb, break up. Caleb moves on to somebody else. And then all of a sudden, this same person starts texting the parents of this new girlfriend. It is this all-encompassing barrage of text messages that just stall out and abuse these two kids. And as you watch the documentary, you are listening to the mom, you're listening to the dad, you're listening to the parents of the other kids be sort of exasperated by the fact that they can't figure out who is doing this. And they're angry at the school administrators for not taking phones and not stopping it. And then it shifts. At the end of the documentary, you discover that it is actually Kendra Licari, the mom, that is harassing her own daughter and her daughter's boyfriend. It is such an appalling and manipulative behavior that it's hard to sort of wrap your head around. Why would a mother do this to her daughter and then seek the support of the community? And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to analyze this case, and I'll try and share how I would view somebody like Kendra Licari. Now, before we get into this, I want to thank the sponsor for tonight's video, Babbel. As I've said on this channel before, in my family, it's a big deal to be Italian. It's also a big deal if you don't speak Italian. So this past summer, my family was traveling to Italy, and I wanted to get up to speed. So I started working with Babbel. They're one of the top language learning apps in the world, and their teaching methodology, which was designed by over 650 real language experts, is scientifically backed by researchers at Yale, Michigan, and other top institutions. I remember when I was in high school, and it was just rote memorization of words, and you had to conjugate the words, and I struggled with it all. On Babbel, you have different teaching modalities, whether that is listening to podcasts, whether it's interacting with the AI conversation partner, whether it is learning vocabulary, whether it is speaking into the phone or listening to the phone speak to you. It's a much more multimedia, much more comprehensive approach to learning a new language. My favorite is the AI conversation partner.
Let's practice making plans with a friend.
Andiamo al parco?
Sì, mi piace. A che ora ci vediamo?
Alle tres, va bien? I think it's fantastic. You can start learning a new language in as little as 3 weeks. So while I wasn't fluent before I went to Italy, I was able to say a few key phrases. Where's the bathroom? Dove il bagno? My name is. Me chiamo David. Thank you, grazie. It really helped me get up to speed quickly. Now, the best part is because you are a valued member of the PopPsych YouTube audience, Babbel is offering you a 55% discount on your subscription. All you have to do is click the link below in the description or scan the QR code on screen. It's the learning season, and using Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket to help you reach your language learning goals. I really recommend you try them out. Okay, Kendra Licari. As I always say, I cannot diagnose from afar. This is me reacting to a case like this. I want to tell you how a psychologist might view a patient that is operating the way that Kendra is depicted in the documentary. The suggested diagnosis in the documentary was Digital Munchausen by Proxy, which is not a real diagnosis. Munchausen syndrome, that it is now called Factitious disorder imposed on another. Essentially what it is saying is that you have a parent or a guardian that is harming a dependent in an effort to get some kind of positive feedback from the people around them, whether it's sympathy or it's support or it's praise, whatever. They hurt their child or exaggerate their child's medical symptoms in an effort to get support from the doctors, let's say. In this case, they've added digital to the front of it because Kendra wasn't physically hurting her child, but she was creating trauma and chaos and then receiving some positive regard or feedback from the community. I understand how they landed there, but I think that diagnosis is incomplete. I think it is a miss. Let me tell you why. So first of all, if it was pure digital Munchausen syndrome, as we think about it, Kendra would be positioning herself as the savior. So she'd be sending the horrible text messages. Her daughter, Lauren, would get distressed by the text messages, and she would jump in and say, it's so horrible. Let me hug you. Let me nurture you. Let me be the rock that protects you from this. That's what it would look like. Or she would go to the community and say, I am this poor mom, and look how I'm having to take care of my daughter. Please give me positive regard or positive feedback. But in this case, she doesn't really step out as the hero. Other moms in the community are more distressed by it than she appears to be. And she doesn't act like the rock for Lauren. Instead, she minimizes the text messages. She doesn't put herself in a position to nurture her daughter. She could have said, why don't you stay home from school? I'll take care of you. She could have said, let me homeschool you and I'll be the only thing in your world. Instead, she says, go back to school and just forget about the text messages.
Mom was like, just ignore them. She was just encouraging me to not read them.
I told her just to keep being her and just not even worry about anything, right?
Diagnostically, it's really important that her goal is not to be the savior. It's something else. And that alone, I think, weakens the digital Munchausen by proxy diagnosis. The next thing that I think is a huge issue is the actual content of the text messages. Remember, Kendra is texting her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend, Caleb. And the texts are pornographic in nature. I mean, very aggressive, very egregious, way outside of what the typical 13-year-old girl, that's way outside of what the typical 50-year-old person would be sending back and forth. I mean, they are horrific in nature. They are personal, they are obsessive, and they're being directed at both Lauren and Caleb, and eventually Caleb's new girlfriend's parents. It shows that she is obsessed with this relationship, and it seems to me specifically obsessed with Caleb. The fact that she keeps texting Caleb after the breakup, the fact that she follows Caleb to his new relationship after the breakup is wild. It tells you there is far more going on than just digital Munchausen by proxy. There was a personal fixation and obsession. At the end of it, when she's being caught and she's trying to explain herself, she goes, look, it kind of got out of control. It suggests that there's a compulsion to be interacting with these two kids, which is very different than the sort of strategic manipulation, parental manipulation that is typical of digital Munchausen by proxy. So let's talk about Kendra, at least what we know about her. In the documentary, she shares that she was raped when she was an adolescent, when she was a similar age to Lauren. Now, I would never look at it and say just because somebody was assaulted, they are going to have distorted behaviors later on. But when you see distorted behaviors and there is past trauma and abuse, you can see the connection. It would definitely lead to distorted boundaries around sex, protection, what nurturing looks like. It could impact all of that. And I also think it's important to note that Kendra shared that her childhood was destroyed by the abuse she experienced. And you're looking at Lauren, her daughter, who is, before all of this happens, a young girl that appears to have a really happy, calm, stable life. No chaos. She's in a relationship with her boyfriend. They're deemed to be the golden couple. She appears to have a good group of friends. She's athletic. Like, she has everything going for her. I would not be surprised if someone like Kendra looks at that and has incredible jealousy around what her daughter's experiencing versus her own experience. And what she did clearly distorted the happy picture, the happy life that her daughter was building. And there's more evidence of this if you look at the content of the text messages. A lot of them are not just sowing chaos, but they are pitting Lauren against the texter. It's Lauren against her mom, competing for the sexual relationship, which again does not fit the diagnosis of digital Munchausen by proxy. This is not a nurturing mom. This is combat. This is a twisted romantic rivalry between Lauren and the texter. And let me say one more thing about this jealous, aggressive obsession with Caleb. If you look at the actual content of the text messages, many of them are graphic and first person. It's me and Caleb. Imagine me with Caleb. It's not, hey, Caleb likes other girls than you. It's Caleb and me. Well, I just think, again, it shows you diagnostically there's more going on than just a mom trying to get positive feedback from the community. It's a mom obsessed and out of control in her obsession with this young boy. So what's the diagnosis? If it's not just digital Munchausen's by proxy, or if it's not just fictitious disorder imposed on another, what else is there? So here's how I would start if I were a clinician looking at this. The first thing I would be thinking about is PTSD. Now, I don't have enough from the documentary to make that diagnosis. But if I were meeting with her and I heard about the trauma in her background and then the level of chaos that she is creating in her life now, it would be the first thing I would be assessing and considering. So let's leave that up there. PTSD. Next, I think the sexual connection, the sexual fantasy, the sexual obsession, and the out of control nature of that obsession is really important. Diagnostically, I would call it a paraphilic disorder, which essentially says that you have a odd or a distorted sexual fantasy that is causing harm on another. You can sort of separate this from if you have a fetish, right? You might have a high heel fetish, but it hurts no one to have this sort of odd sexual wrinkle. But if your obsession is about a 13-year-old boy, now you are sending aggressive, harmful text messages, you are now harming people as a consequence of your sexual fantasy. So diagnostically, I would call it a paraphilic disorder. Next, I'd want to address the connection between Kendra's jealousy of Lauren and her delusions about having a relationship with Caleb. So I think diagnostically, it would fit something like a delusional disorder, jealous type. Essentially, what that means is that she is so invested in this relationship that she has deluded herself into thinking that she actually has a shot with this 13-year-old boy who doesn't even know who she is. Now, that's one option to sort of address this delusional jealousy. The other option, the question is the jealousy delusional, or is she manipulating the people around her because of some deeper psychopathology? The diagnosis that may fit would be borderline personality disorder. Again, we don't know enough about Kendra. I don't know if this is a pervasive pattern. I don't know how else it's showing up. The only thing I can think about is when eventually she's caught and the dad comes home and the dad is exasperated and he's looking at his wife going, I've put up with a lot of stuff, but the fact that you're now involving our daughter, that's where I draw the line. We're going to have to get divorced. I don't know what I dealt with a lot of stuff is, but if she is manipulating people around her constantly, showing a lot of love and then harming them, if she struggles to regulate her own emotions, which seems very clear in the documentary and very clear in her behavior, then it could be borderline personality disorder, which I would probably diagnostically elevate above delusional disorder, jealous type. I would put borderline personality disorder. Here's my global point. There is a lot going on with this woman, and I wish the documentary had a psychologist analyze her and evaluate her. It is so odd to me that she allowed herself to be part of this documentary. It tells me that she thought that she could share her story and justify some of her behavior. I also thought it was really odd that when she gets caught, the first thing she is doing is crying because she's worried about losing her daughter, and she's hugging her daughter. There doesn't appear to be any fear about her daughter abandoning her.
Thinking straight, we do some things that aren't right. You know, your mom doesn't want this to get out, but it is some public information, so it's not going to not get out.
And sure enough, her daughter doesn't abandon her. And it feels clear to me that there is this pattern of interaction, and there is a little bit of a sort of a narcissistic or distorted view of the world and how people will perceive her. All of that suggests to me that there is much more going on with Kendra than we know. So my kind of final statement would be way more than digital Munchausen's by proxy. Let me know what you think in the comments below.